Buenas and Afade, good morning, Biba Betnes, and welcome to the Guam Congress Hall, our public hearing room for this oversight hearing conducted by the Committee on Education, Public Safety, and the Arts, and it's hereby called to order at 9:08 Chamorro Standard Time. Notice of the hearing was disseminated to all local media outlets on May 17, 2024, with a second notice provided on May 22nd, 2024. Notice of the hearing was also made known on the Guam Legislature's website and the Government of Guam Public Notices portal. Today, the committee will hear testimony and discuss the Guam Department of Education with the following items on the agenda: Typhoon Mawar recovery project status, refurbishment contract status and information, school consolidation and closure update, ARP spending plan update, Simon Sanchez JFK double session, temporary Simon Sanchez campus update, Benavente Middle School, Astumbo Middle School double session update, summer student opportunities, public health school sanitation compliance for school year 24-25, special education 1-to-1 aid update, and there will be a period at the end of the hearing for public comment. I'd like to now welcome my colleague joining us this morning, Senator Tom Fisher. Good morning, Senator. And before we begin, I'd like to go over the general rules of conduct. Individuals testifying shall first be recognized by the chair before speaking and shall state their name for record-keeping purposes. Questions and testimony shall be confined to the substance or nature of the agenda. Personal inference as to the character or motive of any senator or individual testifying is not permitted. The chairperson of the committee may order the removal from a hearing any member of a legislator in Guam who fails to observe proper decorum pursuant to the 37th Guam Legislature Standing Rules. Any violation of this general rule of conduct will result in the removal from the hearing by the host. And we'll now proceed with the oversight hearing. As I'm sure you well know, that these oversight hearings are mandated by one of the laws that we passed last year, and it requires myself as the oversight chair of the Guam Department of Education to conduct monthly oversight hearings. And so that's why we're seeing you in here every month. And good morning, Superintendent. If you and your team and anyone who plans to speak would please rise, and we'll just have you sworn in by our Sergeant at Arms. Thank you, Sarge.
Please raise your right hand. Under penalty of perjury, do you all affirm that any and all information you provide today, whether it be verbally, electronically, and in writing, be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Mr. Chair, you're on oath. You may proceed.
To our Sergeant at Arms, Mr. Ed Pagaigui, and I'd like to go a little outside the box right now and offer my congratulations to the Guam Police Department for their promotions that are taking place at this hour. Unfortunately, due to the conducting of this oversight hearing, we couldn't make that promotion ceremony, but again, want to congratulate and thank all the fine men and women in blue for their service to our island and our people. And I'd also like to recognize the presence of Senator Tello Taitagui and Senator Joanne Brown. Good morning. Superintendent, good morning.
Good morning. Here we are again.
Here we are again, yep. Same time, same channel.
Yeah.
And so you have prepared a presentation for the committee?
Yes.
Okay. Please proceed.
Have the first slide up, please. There we are. We know where we are. For opening remarks, I would just like to say we're happy to provide all this information and update it even more frequently as it changes, because we're in kind of a fluid situation with several of our projects. Some are in motion more than others, but we know that there is a public interest and we want to keep the public informed. So going to the first slide in the presentation, and it's the list of all of the agenda items, and we'll cover all of those to some degree, at least as much information as we have available as of today. First, on typhoon recovery, we have several different categories of efforts that have taken place. Debris removal and labor, this has been submitted, and there's still more debris to be removed, mostly in the form of trees that need to be cut up and removed, and there's quite a bit of work to be done that. But the claims that we could file with FEMA have been claimed and reviewed, and we understand that those refunds are actually on their way. Category B, emergency work, that's overtime and night differential that's connected directly to the typhoon. That's been submitted. And as a state entity and through Homeland Security and Guam Recovery Office, The category E and the E and G projects, all the GDOE schools, including the LEAF schools, have been inspected by FEMA, and the projects have been submitted for review and approval. We don't have word back on that yet. GDOE is waiting for notification to proceed with necessary repairs and replacement in some cases. In others, we have gone ahead and done that because we needed to do so to operate. Next slide, capital projects. FBLG Middle School refurbishment project, the contractor is actually working now, and the project has started. There'll be some pictures here mostly shortly. Mobilization of materials and equipment and installation. They're currently working on the roof, scraping it and cleaning it off so they can be redone. Declogging downspouts and pipelines, pressure washing the roof, and doing selected interior demolition. This is where there was concrete spalling and those kind of things. They have to do demolition without students present so that they can go in and do the repairs. Next slide. This is give you a little sense of the condition of the roof. And this is not just on FBLG, but there's one of the worst. When we look at roofs on most of our schools, that's why in the refurbishment project, there is one section on all of those schools that includes roof repair. And this is the kind of stuff that they will be taking care of. Go to the next slide, please. The refurbishment projects, the three regions of refurbishment contracts are now at the governor's office for signature, but at this point we have not been successful in getting those signed because of the situation and disagreement between the governor's office and the attorney general's office. This is all held up pending the results from the pleading before the Supreme Court that was done earlier last week. So that's slowing us down. I have some real concern about the delays because that could cause us to be in a position where we can't get funds obligated by the end of the fiscal year. And if we do that, those funds go back to the U.S. Treasury and we don't get the use of them. And that totals a little in excess of $100 million in federal funds. We're considering an amendment of one of the regions to add additional schools because I've been able to pull back ARP funds that were not obligated by other entities that had access to them. They've opted not to. So we're pulling that all together and looking at, can we add some more schools, and then what other small projects that would have a significant impact on the quality at any given school that we can fund and possibly avoid at a threshold price that would cause us to be caught up in the issue at the AG's office yet again. Anyway, that's we want to get our contracts executed so we'll be able to utilize summertime to do the more intrusive refurbishment work that could present a safety risk to students. The longer this is delayed, the smaller that window gets. Summer break started today. I would like to have had contractors mobilizing today. Had this moved through the system, we would be much closer to that. Anyway, this will extend the timelines for us to be able to pass DPHSS inspections until after that work is completed. Obviously, we can't inspect a school until that work is done. I can't give you a timeline. We have, in your packet, there is a timeline for what we have planned. Those are fluid times, but that's a spreadsheet that looks like this. It's got the calendar. We have a plan. We're working it, and you'll see that we've had good success achieving that so far. Anyway, moving on to the next slide.
Mr. Superintendent, we'll just take a little pause here, and we'll ask some questions about the Mawar status and then the refurbishment. So I just want to ask, what is the status of the $20 million that was taken from the Guam Department of Education and put into this Mawar recovery fund? Like, what's the latest with that?
Still with BBMR, hasn't moved.
So what's the status with the procurement of mold mitigation?
That is in the same situation, has moved. It's still with DPW. We've provided updated specifications for that project and the fence project, but they haven't acted on it.
So there were two projects that you were trying to get done as part of Mawar recovery. One was the mold mitigation, and then the other was the fencing, the perimeter of the
yes,
schools.
those are the two big ones, and there's a couple smaller ones relative to that as well.
So on the smaller projects, have you had any traction, any progress to report?
No, not through that, not through DPW.
Well, we're literally on the 1-year anniversary of Typhoon Mawar's passage, and there's been no progress at all with any of these projects that, I mean, you've been before this committee, you know, once a month, every month for, I mean, stretching back to last year, and we have got no update. So I guess, first of all, is there still mold to mitigate in these schools, in your opinion?
There may well be. Everything we can find, we've cleaned and eliminated. However, there's the kind of testing that the contract would do could reveal items that we don't know that are there, and that's why we want to get it done as well.
So what is the conversation with DPW and the administration just relative to, you know, getting these projects pushed through?
As of this week, they had asked for additional specifications. My CIP folks provided that. They haven't, as of this moment, I don't know that they've moved on it at all.
Go ahead, state your name for the record.
Yes, Nick Cruz, CIP. So for the past year, we've been, sorry, Dr. Swanson, it's actually with GSA. We've been going back and forth with the specifications for both fencing and mold, along with other smaller projects, and we've had countless meetings with GSA, and I know there was an article that was put out a few days ago saying that DOE did not provide any specifications. However, that's untrue. We provided the specifications for both projects from the get-go. 2 days ago, they said that the last pending document from us is market research. We would like to do the procurement ourselves. I mean, obviously GSA has their own limitations, right? And we feel like if the procurement was with us, we could probably expedite it a little bit quicker, but we are in the hands of GSA's procurement as we speak. So we are really just waiting on GSA to move. I know GSA, our last meeting, they did say that they are limited staff. I believe they only really have 2 buyers. So I'm not sure if DOE is the top priority as far as their procurement, but we have submitted all documentation that was needed.
Well, what would you say, Mr. Cruz? Do you feel like DOE is the top priority in procuring these projects?
Of course, yes.
So you're getting top priority treatment?
Well, no.
No, you're not. Yeah. So, Superintendent, we had met a few weeks back, and you had told me that you were trying to initiate movement to get this $20 million returned, since it's just sitting there and we're not getting anything for that money. What's the progress on that?
There has not been much progress at all. I do have a meeting, met on projects yesterday with the governor and her staff. They wanted to get back together with us today or Tuesday, and we're in the process of scheduling that conversation now. And,
okay, and I'll just
my position on it is that obviously we can't move it, so let's move the BBMR, move the money back to us so we can execute.
Yeah, I mean, you guys aren't little babies. I think you can handle your procurement, especially if we've had no movement for a year now officially since the typhoon's passage. It's very frustrating. You know, the fencing is very critical because we're talking about securing the perimeter of our schools. And when I go out to these schools and I talk to these principals, I talk to the staff, you know, they're worried that we could have kids wander off into the road, or we could have, you know, people with bad intentions come into the campus unchecked because, you know, for many of our schools across the district, we don't have that established perimeter security because of all the typhoon damage that all the fence lines took. So just keep me posted on that. I mean, to have no movement at all and have this money taken, it's just, I don't even know what to say. I mean, we hear about education being the priority, but, you know, sadly, I think the results show that the complete opposite is actually what's true relative to this Mawar recovery. On the refurbishment, could you just clarify, so the contract is now at the governor's office for final signature. Did the Attorney General already sign off on it and approve it as to legality and form?
My understanding, there are 3 of the 4.
Yes, so there are 3 of the 4. The AG did not sign. It was more of the stamp issue that Dr. Swanson stated earlier. Of course, that raises a little bit of a legal issue, and I'm unsure if the governor is reluctant to sign, but I do know that the 3 refurbishment contracts have been with the AGs for quite some time, and then with the governor for, I'd say, about a week and a half to 2 weeks.
Thank you, Mr. Cruz. Soup, I don't know if you covered that in your presentation there, but is there, do you have any idea of a timeline for when the FB Leon Guerrero students can reoccupy the original campus?
I'm sorry.
FB Leon Guerrero, right? So we're doing the repairs there.
The workflow on that, the estimate, Nick's been working on that contract.
We are shooting for the end of this year, December. So hopefully the FBOG students can come back on campus by January. That's dependent on supplies and materials, of course, and their manpower. But they have been moving. The top priority is the roofing. Of course, it doesn't make sense to do anything inside the classroom, especially with this inclement weather. They have to fix the roofing. The main issue was the structural issues with FBOG. There's like stalactites. I don't know if you guys have seen FBOG, but water just seeped through the concrete and made everything worse. Typhoon Mawar has made the condition of the campus at FBOG even worse than it was before. When we spec'd out, let's say, floor tiles, for instance, before Typhoon Mawar, it was probably 50% of floor tiles. Obviously, after Typhoon Mawar, 100% of floor tiles need to be replaced, and that goes along with ceiling tiles and all other stuff.
So maybe 2025 for FB Leon Guerrero Hawks to return to their home campus.
The target that we're after is to move the kids and the equipment over Christmas break so that they start the second semester in the refurbished building.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to turn over to my colleagues. If we could confine it to the first couple agenda items, and then we'll let the superintendent finish through his presentation. Or do you want him to just finish through? Any preference? Yeah. Senator Fisher, you're recognized.
Thank you, sir, and good morning to you, Superintendent, and your title, sir, Mr. Cruz?
I'm a PC2. I work for Capital Improvement Projects.
Okay, capital improvement. All right, thank you. First of all, I'd like to congratulate the Department of Education for completing this school year. I know it was a bumpy ride, but you did finally land it, so to speak, and I hope you will share my congratulations with the entire system. It's very much appreciated. We know that you've had a rough time of it. I know that some of the schools are not in the best shape that you would like them to be, and but my greater question is this: your priority is to educate our children. Do you agree, Superintendent?
Absolutely. That's our main mission.
It's the education of the kids, correct?
That's correct.
Now, we will be beginning a new school year in late August or September?
In August.
In August. Now, when that new school year dawns, do you feel that you will be able to accommodate all of the children on Guam who are eligible for a public education?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. When I say accommodate, will they be, in spite of what happened with Typhoon Mawar, and mold, perhaps, if it still exists in the schools and so forth, do you feel that you will be able to give the children of Guam an adequate education beginning in this upcoming school year in August?
I think we can do that, and I understand too the Adequate Education Act criteria. We're still working through some of that, especially when we're looking at the number of qualified certified teachers. Okay. That remains a challenge. We have 40 vacancies right now, not including retirements, and we only graduated 20 from UOG.
Okay. So in spite of...
So the pipeline's narrow.
Yeah, if you're going to net it out, it looks like you're going to end up with 20 short, somewhere around there. Will you be able to work through that challenge to give children an adequate education?
I believe we can.
Okay.
I believe we can. Our folks, we have some... Our team has proven that they can work through an awful lot of adversity and get a quality work done. Is there room for improvement? Absolutely.
Okay. While you are providing the education to our children, will you still be able to complete some of the work towards cleanliness and safety in the institutions?
That continues to be an emphasis. We're realigning our human resources to support two things. First of all, the health department inspections, and then just general maintenance. We've programmed money into a new budget to increase our capacity for maintenance.
Okay.
So I'll acknowledge that that's an area of concern, and will continue to be for some time to come.
Okay. Your various campuses around the island, you've already indicated you'll be able to provide a safe, you've already indicated you will be able to provide education for the children. It's vital to the parents to know that their children will be in safe facilities. Will you be able to educate our children within safe facilities?
Yeah, even in those campuses that might have parts of them cordoned off, that we're making sure that the areas that we're using are safe.
Okay. Yeah. The last 4 years, I suppose, have been very destabilized, and I think that that has worked to the detriment of many children, you know, with the double sessions. But before that, we had online education, and I know that presents a whole host of new difficulties, and I know that the children do not like that. Assuming there's no, well, frankly, legislative meddling in your business, will you be able to accomplish the education of our children in this next school year successfully, in your estimation?
I believe that we can, and we could show significant improvement over the course of the year. While it may not be always an easy relationship, I think our partnership with the legislature is critically important to being able to be successful, because this is a whole community effort.
And we have the purse. Yeah.
And other things.
Other things. Okay. Well, I'm encouraged, sir. It sounds like the Department of Education's focus is on providing an education. I've always been at the, you know, when we were closing down the schools, I was always thinking, well, take the kids under a tree and let's do the timetables. You know, let's learn how to diagram a sentence, all that stuff. We cannot afford to miss school days. As you know, you're an educator, because we'll never get that back. Once that day is gone, it's gone. So I appreciate the effort all of you are putting into this. I really do. I know that there's been significant adversity. But the mission you're accomplishing is vital to us. So please educate the children. I know you will. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Fisher. Senator Brown?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and welcome to our superintendent and your staff. You know, it is concerning because we are now a year later, and we did support the legislation, which I know our chairman did not, to allow the Department of Education another year to fall into compliance with regards to the maintenance of the schools, so that public health could properly address the inspections and certifications of the schools, that they were safe and clean environments for our students to be in. And we're also coming up fairly shortly on that deadline. I know you've been working with them to get the inspections in the schools, but the original law that was passed essentially will say that if the Department of Education is not inspected by public health and it has not passed, then it means that facility is not going to be usable. Where are you with regards to those other schools that I understand are still being inspected, but because that one-year timeline is coming up, the deadline on the law is soon approaching?
I'm aware of the deadline, and I have proposed that We extend that because we have to acknowledge the capacity both of our team and the public health team to do the inspections. And when we look at the schools that go under refurbishment, they won't even be able to be inspected until that construction work is completed. So I have given Senator Barnett a letter requesting an extension on that particular language that allows us to occupy until we are inspected. And we have to use the same standard that we have been. If a school fails the inspection, we have to close it until it can pass. That presents a whole set of other problems. We had one that did that this year, and we're doing everything we can to make sure that when the inspection happens, we pass it. And then we have to start a cycle of reinspection.
And of the schools that have already been inspected that have passed and those that you have yet to have, do you have a breakdown on which schools are going to be caught in that timeline?
Yes, we do. And it's in your packet. There are two spreadsheets. One of them is a smaller one that shows schools that have already been inspected and the scores that they got. And the bigger one that looks like this has a schedule for the rest of the schools.
And how many schools are you looking at that may get caught in this expiration of the law and this requirement falling in place from where you've already progressed?
To reoccupy by August, then we would have 14.
So you have a possibility of 14 schools.
Right.
That may not meet that timeline.
That's correct.
Well, it's something we need to put on the front burner because that's obviously going to be a concern, and we'll see what the appetite is to address extension.
Most of those will be ones that involved in rehabilitation or the refurbishment. But
And do you have a breakdown of the timeline it would take to address those corrections so that if the school is, because I don't know, we'll have to see what the mood is of the legislature, whether or not they're willing to extend. We don't know if we're talking a couple months. We don't know if we're talking another year. I'm sure each school probably has a different timeline.
the ones that we're
Depending on
working
what
on
needs to be
now,
done.
if you recall the presentations that we did last August or so, when we had Category 1, Category 2, Category 3. Now we're in the Category 3 group, the ones that take our team 4 to 6 weeks to repair and prepare to be inspected, along with the effort of the school community. I mean, it's a combination. It isn't all on one group of folks. So our school staff is involved, our parent community's been involved, mayors have been involved. That effort has gone on very successfully, but it's also our maintenance team, and I'm looking at virtually everything starting in July is a month to prepare. That's a committed maintenance team of 6 to 10 people on site every day for a month.
Do you have a profile of each of these schools so that, for example, if you have a certain section that can be repaired while the school is still in operation, the remainder of the school is safe to be occupied? I mean, those are the kind of things we'd like to know. Because I don't know, like I said, a year later, I don't know what the appetite is of my colleagues with regards to granting extensions, or do we simply put all the attention and pressure on DOE to perform, and the schools are shut down, which creates another chaotic situation, not the best learning environment. We have worked with the staff and continue to do so. In fact, the principals in the next week will be doing another assessment of their buildings as we go into the summer to look at those areas, because we have the option of variances in some of the concerns that are in this inspection. So they have to declare the areas that are going to be off limits. That work has to be all refreshed and updated, and they'll be doing that. And at the same time, those things that we can repair, and I'm speaking away from the refurbishment ones, but all the other schools that we have, those things that we have in our capacity to repair, and we're also using some of our federal funding to stock an inventory of items that we know we're going to use after those funds expire to upgrade schools. We're doing that as we go as well. So when I talk about that team that's on site doing that preparatory work,
they're doing a lot of that repair and replacement. For example, restrooms, fixtures, those kinds of things.
Is there, out of the 14 schools, are there any of these that can be addressed in the shorter timeline this summer while the students are out that you think can facilitate getting those schools fully online for inspection and occupation?
I have to go with what my maintenance folks are telling me. If they're saying it's going to be a month, it's going to be a month. So we've been fortunate sometimes to be able to go faster and be able to move, but we're running our teams in a schedule that is 2 schools ahead of the inspection group that is coming from public health, so that by the time they come, we have some of our folks that go with them, and if there's anything else they see, they correct it on the spot, and that's really made a difference in our ability to pass. But we're, depending on what has to be repaired, that changes the composure and the composition of the teams that are on site. But we're taking that information directly from what the principals tell us, but also what our own inspection tells us.
And have you asked, I mean, I know almost every year before the school year, the request is almost made to a number of government agencies to help come in and facilitate cleaning and maintenance, repainting, things of that nature for the school facilities. Is that something you've initiated to request of the government and the governor to provide that assistance?
We're working primarily through our principals with the communities that they're in to get volunteer support, and it looks a little different depending on the school.
But are you looking at getting any additional support from the government of Guam? I mean, it's very traditional. I spent many a day on the other side of the aisle coming in right before the end of summer to help facilitate water blasting, paint chipping, painting.
Last year we had investigated that option, but now that you mention it, we will be.
You should. My last stop was the Port Authority. We were always there taking care of Southern High School because we had maintenance people and people that can weld and people that can cut, people that can clean, people that can water blast. And I just bring that up because you have an organized workforce that actually can help come in for those projects that are reachable, usable, things that they can do within a couple of weeks to help facilitate. And I don't see any reason why not, considering the current state. If you have 14 schools, that's significant.
Yeah.
Well, I know some of them are much major projects that require contractors to come in, but if there are other things that support staff could come in from the government agencies and help you with, by all means, you should make that request.
And we can certainly do that. I do have new leadership in my maintenance department that's pretty well connected in the larger government of Guam community.
The National Guard. I mean, there are opportunities there. It just requires the front office to tip their cap and say, yes, we're here to support you.
Sure.
Sorry. While we're on the topic of public health inspection, on August of this year, we do have 7 schools that will need to be renewed. In the smaller handout that you guys see here, on August 22nd of this year, there are going to be 7 schools that have been inspected, but will need to be re-inspected. I'm not sure if that overlap will have some kind of issue. There are more schools that we need to inspect, and it's going to be obvious that we won't be able to inspect all these schools by this August 22nd deadline, just to have that rollover for the next schools to be inspected that have been inspected. So that might be another issue come August that we might come across.
Well, it might not be a bad idea to sit down with public health and see what's feasible and what they can address within that time frame, because we're hoping that the schools that have already been inspected and passed have been maintained to that standard. So
yes.
we're assuming, again, it's an assumption that the inspection should be a lot easier versus the existing schools that you're still awaiting inspection. I'd facilitate that meeting like real soon. Okay. So we're not surprised in August. I just have the other question, Mr. Chair, and you brought that up with regards to the mold mitigation and the fencing. We've had this discussion many a day here, and we are considerably concerned that we've not been able to see facilitation of procurement for both of those critical items. You did mention you are doing mold cleaning already in the schools, but I'm sure you want to have a professional company come in and verify, test, and make sure that those concerns are addressed, and if not, then address the proper cleaning and mitigation of that.
And you're correct on that, and that's the purpose of the procurement to begin with.
So what is the difficulty? Is it the $20 million getting released? Is it Is it the process of actually doing the procurement? What needs to be done? Because this is a year in the making. It's still here, and we're still dealing with the same issue. And I know back then, last year, we brought up our concern about wanting the mold mitigation to be addressed because we got a lot of complaints about that. And then obviously the security of the school, getting those fences put back up because of that. We're concerned about people getting in and out during the school day for safety reasons. So what's the I'm at a loss. What is the difficulty? Is it the money? Is it the procurement? Is it a combination of both?
My understanding, it is the procurement, not the money.
And so what's the difficulty in procurement of this?
At this point, it's that it doesn't lie under our control, and it doesn't appear to be a priority. The last conversation I had, of course, is that the declared emergency ended.
Yes, because emergencies can only be on for a short time, yes.
Right. And that changed the whole D-Land ticket priority system. And then, Mr. Cruz here has been working with these folks trying to get it done. My next step is to do one of two things: either ask for the money back, or if needs be, use some of the federal dollars that we have to go ahead and do that work, because we have to get it done.
So why don't you pull it back? Why is it still with GSA? Is GSA going to come back and say, oh, the packet's not complete, DOE forgot to submit this or that? Where are we? I mean, if I was on this, I'd be on it. Where are we with regards to why it's not moving? They're just not doing it? You don't know? You haven't knocked on their door? You haven't rattled fences? What?
The position that's been presented to us is that they need further specifications for the work. We've provided that as recently as in the last couple of weeks, and it still has not moved.
So what are you going to do?
Well, I'm going to be asking for the money back. I mean, either move it or give me the money back, but it has to happen.
And how soon are you going to do that?
That's a conversation that will happen within the next 2 business days.
I would consider it a priority. I mean, like I said, I'd be knocking on their door every day, find out, or give it back to me. Like I said, you have your procurement. I don't know why this has been sitting with GSA since after the typhoon.
Well,
if you have the ability to do it, why don't you just do it and make it your top priority?
I can tell you how we got here. I don't like where we are. Understand that, please, from the beginning. But how we got here was that the assurance was the quickest way to get this done was under the D-Land process when that happened, initially after the storm, when I first was in office. Mm-hmm. Obviously, that's not the truth. Some people are more important than others, and that's the only way I can frame it. So we have to go to another effort. I either have to get the funding moved back or use other funds and wonder what became of the funds that were allocated to begin with, that this body allocated. That's another conversation entirely, and that's not for me to police. My opportunity and my requirement is to take care of our kids in our buildings. So one way or the other, we have to get it done.
And we agree with you. I just think, this needs to be put on the front burner, and the heat needs to be turned to the highest level to facilitate, because we're here a year later and we're still having this discussion on 2 key items that we thought were a priority. If you let the minutia of government take the lead, we'll be nowhere. Everything will sit. I mean, I would have to say the burden is on you to put the pressure on or get it back or do something, but to sit here and here we are all this time later and have nothing to show for it, because of I don't care at this point what the issues are. If they can't do it, then pull it back and do it yourself. At least that I assume you have control, because you have your own procurement division.
And you're right. And that's where we're going.
Well, I hope by the next time we sit down, we're not having this conversation that things are moving along. I think that would be the expectation. Yeah. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Brown. Senator Tydegui.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning to my colleagues, and definitely good morning to DOE and everyone here who's ready to answer some of our questions. Mr. Superintendent and Mr. Cruz, right? It's Cruz. I'm just going to continue on a little bit about this procurement, okay, in the first place, so that those people who are listening understand what predicament you are in. For me, that $20 million that was given to you To me, Mr. Swanson, you played politics, and you allowed the governor to take that money away. Now we're sitting here because with not being able to move forward and having no control, because either, one, you didn't push hard enough, and to me, I think you have. You know, I've seen you constantly try to get that money back. Or the governor just doesn't feel education is important enough to give it back to you. This body intended that money to go to you. So either you do a press release and tell the people of Guam that the governor doesn't care about our children and is holding hostage your money so that you can get the things you need done at the school. Mold of all things. And it's been a year. Mr. Superintendent, do you have the authority to declare an emergency for procurement? Do you have that authority by statute?
I believe I do.
You do have that authority by statute. And that allows you to do your own procurement. Mr. Cruz, you mentioned earlier in your conversation that you don't have the authority to do procurement. You do. Under the statute, you have that authority. GSA, if I'm not mistaken, is very understaffed right now with only one person there. It makes it difficult. One, have you been able to assist GSA providing all the documents they need, or because you have a procurement within the Department of Education to oversee this, that you provide some assistance to GSA to get those through? Have you done that? Or have you just dumped the papers at GSA and expect them to do everything? Have you assisted them and offered your service because of their shorthandedness at GSA, Mr. Cruz?
It was just made known to us by GSA of their shorthandedness back in April in our last meeting.
April.
In our last meeting, yes. So from there, we have submitted all our documentations. I know that we did have a plan to have one of our buyers in our procurement team to assist GSA. I'm unsure if that has moved yet, but as far as all the specifications and all the documentations that they needed from us, it has all been provided.
But you can also provide assistance to GSA within your department. Mr. Cruz, when you said April, how long have you been in the procurement department?
I'm not in procurement. I work for capital improvement projects. I'm sorry.
I see. Who is the head of procurement at DOE?
We do have, her name is Carmen Sharfers. She is the head of procurement, and yes.
How many people do you have in procurement? I'm sorry to be asking you, Mr. Cruz, Mr. Superintendent, because it's obvious, I mean, you're in capital improvement. I mean, of course, you deal with them all the time, but
Correct.
Mr. Swanson, how many people do you have in procurement in DOE?
There's the lead, who is Carmen, and she has an assistant, and there's 6 buyers.
Six. When GSA, or 4 more, GSA has 1 or 2 that does the whole government of Guam, that your agency can actually assist GSA in getting these procurements through. And when I hear about April, this should have been done back in February or even last year, 2023. And I'm just hearing this now in April that you're moving toward trying to get all that documented. GSA, it doesn't make any sense. One thing that I do know, Mr. Swanson, and this is what you mentioned, that you do understand that you have the authority by statute to declare an emergency to handle your own procurement. But you need the money to do that. Right now, the governor controls that $20 million, which doesn't give you the authority to handle that money with your own procurement instead of using GSA. You do agree with that, right?
Yes.
Okay. So is there any funding that you have currently in DOE right now that you can declare a state of emergency, get this mold cleared up, get those schools repaired, and utilize that funding by declaring an emergency at DOE to handle your own procurement? Is there funding there?
I have some federal funding I can reprogram.
Then why aren't you doing it? Why aren't you declaring an emergency so that you can utilize this fund and have your own procurement? You have 4, 5, 6 people in procurement while GSA has only 1 or 2. That's what you need to do. You also need to, Governor, please give us the money that was intended for us. Yeah, that 20 million. Because I can't open these schools. I can't keep our students safe. The legislature is obviously doing it. So please, Mr. Superintendent, whatever you need to do, call the media. Call it out. Call it out. If that's how to move it through, if you're going to play politics, which you did last year by allowing her to take that 20 million, then you need to play politics to get it back. Okay? And we're here to help you. I've never known any other committee chair who has an oversight hearing every single month for any agency. Never. And I've been, this is my 4th term as a senator. So we're here to help you. We want to see this work. We have to see this work for our children. See, in your meetings that you have, okay, so enough with procurement. Let's get it done. Call that state of emergency. Use whatever funding you have right now and do your own procurement because you have that authority by statute. Secondly, in your board meetings, you have a committee called the Safety and Healthy School Committee, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. What is the status? Because you've had a board meeting that you implemented this group of individuals. I want you to tell me a little bit about it and what's the status.
That committee meets on an ad hoc basis. It's headed by the deputy or the vice chair of the board, Mr. Sablan, and 2 other board members. His group sets the agenda for that. I report information to them and generally update them throughout the course of the month prior to board meetings. And we have similar standing committees, one for finance, one for policy.
Safety and healthy. Do you have the report? Is it in this packet that we received, Safety and Healthy School Committee?
It's in the report that we send in monthly, and it's in the superintendent's report.
But has it been sent to us so that we can see what's happening?
I'm sorry.
Could we get a copy of those reports that have been? When did this Safety and Healthy School Committee transpire? When was it created?
Just as a point of information, all the documents and reports that are provided to the board are included in the packet for the hearing.
Yeah, I was looking through it, and I was trying to look at the report for safety and health. Is it in here, Mr. Chair? Okay, the report is in here.
If there is a report from that committee, it would be in those documents.
I didn't see it, Mr. Chair. That's why I'm asking the superintendent.
And each subcommittee does not necessarily have a report each month.
Well, with safety and health, I should hope they have a report every month because that's what we're here about. That's all the issues that are going on.
And that will be reflected in the minutes that are also provided because the minutes are actually a transcription of the meeting.
Okay, I'm not going to belabor it. I'm going to look for it again. If I don't find it, I will definitely seek you or Joe Sanchez's help to find that report so I can keep it. And that helps us to find out how you're moving forward if you have a committee directly for this. So you mentioned $100 million earlier, federal funds, the AG's office. Can you just give me a little insight about what your issue is with the AG's office? What are you having difficulty for?
It's the whole discussion around whether or not his office represents us as a government agency. And the first stall was, we don't represent you, so we're not going to process the contracts. And they sat for several weeks. Then they did process them and move them on to the governor, and the governor is determined not to sign the contracts until she gets the reading from the Supreme Court that they just pled out this last week. So it's caught up in that whole discussion.
But they have been reviewing your contracts, and they did review the contracts, and now it's sitting at the governor just stalling again.
Correctly.
Okay.
My understanding is 3 of the 4 contracts. The 4th one's not there
But
yet.
they did do the review, is my
Yes.
point here.
Yes.
And so the AG is doing their job, because if we need to call the AG, we'll do that as well. But right now, you're saying they did do their job, they reviewed it, and now again, it's sitting at the governor's office, just sitting there. So when you're knocking on the door for the money, ask for those contracts to be signed.
That's the purpose of
Yeah.
the meeting that we've asked for.
Yeah.
The conversation I had with them yesterday afternoon, and they're working with my office to either meet this afternoon or Tuesday.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. That's
Thank
all
you,
I have
Senator
for now.
Tadiwi.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just as a point of information, I maintain consistent contact with the Attorney General and his office relative to the contracts that deal with the Guam Department of Education, because what I hate to see and what I see happening right now is our public schools and our public school kids are being put in the middle of this battle between the Attorney General and the Governor and Lieutenant Governor, whether it has to do with the delays in the construction of the new Sanchez, or whether it has to do with the Mawar recovery projects, or whether it has to do with contracts sitting over on the governor's desk because she doesn't want to sign them because of this whole battle that's going on with the Attorney General. And we have gone to bat for the Guam Department of Education in so many ways in this 37 Guam legislature relative to this $20 million. I mean, we had amended the budget bill and basically said, if they don't give you back your $20 million, we're not going to fund the office of the governor. And what ended up happening then, Mr. Superintendent, is you went to a meeting with the governor and they came out with a press release that said, oh no, leave the $20 million there, we're good. And that was your first taste of Guam politics. And I'm not trying to blame you, but I mean, you must like the taste because you're still going through the same thing. Now we're talking about another meeting, and who knows if we're going to see. I don't know how many releases they've put out about how they're working to help the schools, but to me, it looks like help for our schools dies when it gets to Adelup because we've got no movement on the Mawar, we've got no movement on these contracts. I don't believe there's anything stopping the governor, lieutenant governor from signing these refurbishment contracts, and I've done my due diligence as the chair of education to keep an open line of communication with the Attorney General because of all this back and forth. And so a lot of times what you're reading in the news or what you're seeing on the TV isn't really accurate. They'll say a contract is sitting over at the AG. I called the AG's people and they say, no, we sent it back to the agency. And so our kids don't deserve to be caught in this tug of war between the governor and the AG. And I know you understand that you have an obligation as a superintendent to put your foot down. I mean, my advice would be to immediately write a letter, to immediately demand a return of the $20 million, and to immediately begin to procure these projects on your own. Sitting here and waiting for GSA to somehow miraculously pull this procurement out of its noggin it's a futile thing to do because we've had a hearing in here about this new financial management system, and they are backed up tens of thousands of invoices. They can't procure anything because of the shortages in the staff and because of the issues with the new financial management system. And so, you know, I don't even know. I know so many people who work hard at the schools. I'm not even sure if we still have mold at the schools because I know the hardworking staff and the teachers, they do something about it like they did after the typhoon. I mean, they were the ones who went into the schools and they were the ones who cleaned up the mold. They were the ones who did everything that we had to do. Meanwhile, you had the governor, lieutenant governor talking about the whole of government to fix the schools, and that day has never come. So it's beyond frustrating to sit here and listen to this run around and listen to you say that you're going into another meeting tomorrow when I'm telling you they're just going to keep putting you through the ringer. You need to get firm. You need to write that letter. You need to demand the return of the money so that we can move forward with all these projects that are very critical to educating our kids. And that's all I'm going to say about it. I'm tired of hearing no update on this $20 million. It boggles my mind that this lieutenant governor and this governor are continuing to sit on their hands while we've got all these issues at the schools. And it's clearly on their lap right now. And so if that money's not moving, if those projects aren't moving a year after this typhoon hit our island, then I say it's time for you to say enough is enough. demand the money back, and move forward on your own. You've got more buyers. You actually have more procurement people than GSA has. And so I hope next month, when we have another oversight hearing, I hope you got some new information or some new development or something new, because I don't want to go another month with hearing this runaround, because we did our part. We really stuck our necks out to get you that $20 million back. Yeah, we went into emergency session, I know. And then relative to the school inspections, I mean, everything you've asked me to do, I've done. You said there was a problem with the expiration of the sanitary permits on June 30th. I introduced a bill so that we can have these permits expire on the anniversary date of their issuance. You know, we passed a bunch of laws last year, and one of them, unfortunately, I did not support it, but one of these laws that this legislature passed allows you and gives you the authority to continue operating schools even if they failed inspection. And I'm glad that you didn't do that. I'm glad that we continue to move forward, and the goal continues to be, let's inspect these schools, let's get them passed so that our kids can learn in a clean, safe environment. I mean, it's just really a no-brainer. And then while I'm on this subject of public health, I am aware, because I was watching the board meeting, that the Finnegodzin Elementary, there was a rat discovered in the cafeteria. So I don't know if you can tell us anything about that before we move on with the rest of the agenda.
I can't speak to the rat. I will say, though, I appreciate the effort that the legislature has gone through to make it possible for us to move forward. It's not lost on me at all. We're not where we want to be, and it's on me and my staff to get us where we need to be. And we'll continue to work on that. You can see the progress that you've made. I certainly understand why. I don't understand how it was ever allowed to get to be in the situation that it is, but you can certainly understand.
It's unforgivable, Mr. Superintendent.
Yeah,
and what it requires is, you know, we can sit up here and we can complain, we can bang the table, but it's ultimately your call. If the superintendent of the Guam Department of Education writes a letter and says, hey, we haven't had anything on this money in a year, give it back right now. We're grown-ups. We can handle our own procurement. That's going to make headlines, and that's going to push action. And so that's what you got to do. You have to take the gloves off for our kids. You got to go to bat for our kids. You got to get hard. You got to tell them, hey, if you're not doing anything with that money, give it back, because we can sure as hell find something to do with it. Now tell me about the rat.
Sean Monforti, Food and Nutrition. The rat was discovered. Inside of the serving hot tray. It was really so far in the tray that we had to call a vendor to come in, take apart the tray, and pull it out. So we did do a corrective action. We did check when the last time we were in the vector control, which we were in the allotted times. So the vector was done at the school 6 weeks prior. And then our partners with Sodexo, they called in JMI. They came in, they tore apart the machine because we couldn't find out where the smell was coming. And that's how we discovered it was a rat. It was so far in the machine, we didn't have any food on it, and we didn't serve anything while the rat was there. But it ended up being on the heating coil, and it cooked it, and that's how they found it.
Well, good morning. Yes. So did you guys call the exterminator after the rat was discovered?
Yeah, so we had Sodexo did it that same day, and they came back the following day, but we did, and then they're going to do a follow-up next week again. So
thank you, Mr. Monforti. Mr. Superintendent, do you have the status of Agata's inspection?
I'm sorry, which inspections?
Agata Johnston Middle School, home of the Pirates.
Tuesday.
Still ongoing.
Okay.
We were supposed to schedule Liguan Elementary for, if you see the date for this week, but Agata is one of our a little bit more challenging schools. It looks hopeful, but I believe our inspection should end Tuesday? Sometime next week. But it's been over a week since they've been inspected.
Okay. Can you please proceed with the remainder of your presentation, and then we'll hold all of our questions until after that. Cito Swasi. Thank you, Mr. Superintendent.
Okay, we're on slide 3, yeah, the update on consolidation. The initial evaluation of campuses has been completed using, well, it's our whole study team that we presented last time that used the materials from community input, also from evaluation of all of the facilities and the engineering report from 2022. All of that's been consolidated. I have the recommendations. They have not been made public and have not been shared with the board yet because I have still got several considerations about how to proceed because it involves being able to maybe possibly reprogram some funding to do work on schools, which will allow us to solve a couple of other problems in the process. So I have to have some conversations with potential families and communities that are involved. The board has opted not to consider closing or consolidating schools before January. So that's a board decision there. So I'm using that time in between to make the best possible proposal. I would say initially though, other than rezoning to balance out our schools, I don't see that we would need to close a facility, but probably reconfigure. So look at potential ideas like a K-8 school rather than a middle school versus an elementary and consolidate the 2 buildings. We need to have some extensive conversations with the communities that would be impacted, so it's not time to go public with that information, but I do have the initial study, and we also have the survey input from parents, and we had in that survey about 8,000 parents responded. We have a total in the survey because there were students, parents, and staff, 16,000 plus responses, so we have good data on that. And I have not folded that into the process yet. But I expect to provide the preliminary, as I show here, the preliminary proposals to the board in July or August. And then at that time, that information will be made public. But it's still in labor. It's not ready for delivery yet. On the ARP spending plan, where we are right now, because we have contracts that are prepared, that are targeted against ARP, and other contracts there's been a mysterious number of $41 million that keeps showing up, and I don't know where that's coming from. It's not coming from us. I have approximately $30 million in ARP funds that we are pulling back in and consolidating that we can then commit to specific projects, but we have developed a listing, and we're working on developing a listing of fixtures for schools that are not scheduled for refurbishment, that our teams can go ahead and do that, so do restroom upgrades, those things that would have been done across the system. So we want to purchase all of that in advance so that we have it on hand, even after these funds would expire. And I also am planning to add 2 schools to the refurbishment group if the math works out, and we're right now in the process of doing those calculations. We also have found an additional need to fund more money behind the air conditioning contract, so we're going to program that in, because in the interim from the time the specs were written until the typhoon hit and we've gone through the year, other systems that were not in the bid have failed, so we need to change those as well. So what I'm trying to do is get all of our purchase orders fully obligated by the 10th of September. We don't want to leave any money on the table. That would not be anything that any of us want. We have kept aside approximately $5 million for contingencies on the existing projects, just because I've yet to see one come in at what it was bid at. So we want to keep that money available, but at the same time have 2 or 3 short-term small amounts of procurements on standby so that by that September 10th, I can go ahead and commit those funds and make sure that they're used for things that we actually need. That's it for the ARP spending at this time. Going on to the next slide, Simon Sanchez. We'll have to start the school year on the double session. We're working on a temporary facility plan that, if this all goes as it should, will be ready for students to occupy at about the January time frame, so we can get out of the double session. And this is working with some of the other members of this legislative body to work with the housing authority to have permission and permitting capability to use housing land that's immediately adjacent to Simon Sanchez campus, and use that to site temporary buildings that are classified and built to withstand Category 5 storms, so that we can, because we're looking at being in those facilities for about 3 years in the course of construction of the high school. And then when we finish that project, that will go back, revert back to the housing authority for their use. This is something that can be reimbursed through FEMA, and we want to hope to do that so that we can get 90% of the money back. But we still want to do that. Our objective I've worked with the parent community, or excuse my principals have worked with the parent community. I've worked with the students, and the biggest priority is they want to be back in their neighborhood and in their own environment, so that they don't have to share the facilities with another school. So that's the target we're going for. It's a work in progress. We don't have it nailed down yet.
I think we're going to have some questions on this. So I guess, Superintendent, I'll start. Is this property that you're looking at with the Guam Housing Corporation, is this the same property that you were looking at, that you told us about in previous hearings, that was adjacent to Sanchez?
And it was, and then we had some inaccurate information about who owned it and what the restrictions were, and we were able to find out Senator San Augustine and Senator Kenyatta were able to bring the folks from the Housing Corporation in. They actually own the land and but the rules around how they can use the land have to be looked at. That's being worked on at the attorney level, and it may come back to you as a body to make some sort of an adjustment in the rules around the use of that property. But yes, it's the same land.
Okay. So how many meetings have you had, and what have the discussions been?
I've had one meeting with the Housing Authority, and I've got correspondence back from them and their attorney. The information that I had as recently as yesterday, I believe it was yesterday, is that they're looking at revising the rules so that we can use that. I'm supposed to get something on that today. I don't have it yet. In the meantime, we are working through the finance side of it and the procurement side for the source of the buildings. This company actually is working through their office in Honolulu, but their equipment comes out of the States. They believe they can ship and install and stand it up in 90 days. The financing and procurement process, of course, has to happen in front of that. So that's why we're targeting mid-school year.
What role, if any, is FEMA playing in this?
I'm sorry?
FEMA? Is FEMA playing a role in this?
FEMA should have a role in it, but we're really late in the cycle. So I have to approach that as that we have to finance it. If we can get reimbursement, that's great. But at this point, we need to do it. And I absolutely agree that keeping the kids in a double session for 2 or 3 more years is not acceptable.
What's the estimated cost?
We're right at $20 million. That seems to be a number that shows up frequently.
Oh, I know where you could get 20 million, that's for sure.
I don't care what color it is, I'll take the 20.
Oh, jokes. Okay.
Either way, we've got to check what we have for mold, and we got to put a fence around it, and we need to move and get these temporary classrooms in place. Those things have to happen.
Right on. Senator Brown, do you have something?
Yes, I just wanted, you did describe that they're going to bring in these, classrooms that they can bring in, ship in and install them?
Yes, they're 800 square foot, 20 by 40. They have their own air conditioning. They can have restrooms in them. And they basically come like modular homes. I've used this kind of structure before in my previous district. I mean, they come, I think they put 5 in a container, and they're all broken down, so they're basically an erector set. And these are rated to handle Category 5 storms.
That was my next question, because we said no one on Typhoon to come by, and then that would be the end of that.
Right.
But have your people looked at the layout? I mean, just the infrastructure putting in for the sewer, the water?
We have to, those infrastructures are there, but we'll have to expand them.
Yes.
To connect to them. So
and do you know how many of these buildings you would need? I mean, I assume you have to have
60.
And then you were able to paste some together for like a cafeteria or?
We'll still be able to.
We'll
still be able to use the cafeteria, the gym, and one of the buildings of the Simon Sanchez campus. I'm sorry?
In the existing building that's there now?
Yes.
And then you'll be able to, at some point, if the building's going to be demolished, how are you going to work around that? Are you going to be able to keep those sections up?
Those can stay up. That's phase 2 of the construction. So phase 1 is the new school. Phase 2 is the demolition, and then converting the land into athletic fields.
So I guess we'll just have to see how quickly this can facilitate, assuming you're doing procurement, right? Because you haven't even procured for these buildings yet.
Yeah, we have to do that. We'll have to handle the procurement.
Do you have any feedback at all from FEMA? I mean, I mean, we just want to know. I mean, this is a facility that primarily was damaged. It was like the last straw, so to speak, that really wiped this building out. But where are we with FEMA? I mean, can any of this be reimbursed? It's nice to know we're late in the game, but where are we at all in the game?
It's eligible, and it's contingent upon them having some more detailed information in terms of the specifications that they've asked for. We're working to provide that, but my team that was charged with that responsibility didn't get it done as quickly as I'd like, so I can't say yes, we're going to get FEMA.
Well, are you in current dialogue with FEMA, and are they still open to the possibility of assisting to pay for it?
Yes, they are, but we're at the end of the cycle in terms of the windows that they use to make those decisions.
That's what's concerning to us. So where are we with that? I mean, if we're still in dialogue with them, when is the absolute last cutoff date that they're saying if you don't get certain things to us, then, too bad, so sad. I mean, where are we with that?
We're submitting the rest of the material that they asked for, and we have to wait for the decision on that. But we'll know something on that in the next week or so.
Okay, well, that'll be good to hear back. I mean, to know if they can still cover it, because, I mean, this is something we could look at as, being directly impacted by we understand Simon Sanchez had facility issues that needed to be addressed for some time, but I think the mold and everything else pretty much is what led to the ultimate total closure of the school. So certainly we would like to facilitate, if we can get federal funds.
Yeah, the main building is in the worst condition. That's the worst part of it.
Well, we look forward to hearing the feedback with regards to that. I'm concerned. I mean, if your people are not moving fast enough, I don't get it. I mean, trying to obtain money and facilitate for the school should be a priority. I mean, some of us are used to moving at a different speed. We're kind of, it seems like molasses on your side. Maybe it isn't, but from our side, it's like moving molasses, and we're like watching it go very slowly. And I would, I'm sorry, we're used to coming in and getting a job done. We get assigned, in our previous life, assigned to going in and fixing problems and delivering on them. And it's just, we're a year later, and we don't know. We'll see what FEMA says. I'd want to be on top of that as well and wanting to know exactly where we're at, that we're going to meet timelines, that we're going to ensure that we can get as much federal money as we can. If your staff's not moving, then maybe you need to put a light under them. I don't know. This is just very slow for us on what I think everyone else in the community would consider a priority.
Well, I agree that we're not where I want to be with this, and all I can say is that we've had to make some changes in staff, and I don't have the answer back from FEMA at this point, as of this moment. I know what they asked for yesterday. We're providing it, and we'll have to wait and see what the answer is. Like I said, I should have it in the next week or so.
Well, I hope you can facilitate. I mean, I understand, the structure of government, it's very frustrating. You don't get to pick your team, and you've got people, the system exists as effective as it is because there's people that benefit from it. That's the bottom line. When things don't work, there's a reason things don't work, and there's a little power structure you got there that's been sitting there an awful long time. Some people want to do stuff, and others, hey, I get my check, I don't care. What are you going to do about it? So, I mean, it's tough, but, if people know you mean business, sometimes they actually get in line. Or you move out of the way, do something, but we're not going to stay where we're at because there's so much expectation, so much money's poured into DOE, and, we're sitting here a year later going, what the heck? We can put other expletives in there, but it wouldn't be appropriate. But that's what's going on in our minds right now. To not see movement on these critical issues or not have answers on these critical timelines.
Okay, I understand your concern.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Brown. Superintendent, if I may, who is in charge of dealing with FEMA?
Mr. Santos?
Mr. Ike Santos?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
How come he hasn't come to any of these hearings? I suggest the next hearing come give us a full report, because I'm hearing that we've missed crucial dates with FEMA, and now the 90-10 split's in jeopardy of being lost, and you don't really seem to know much about it. Or if you do, please share it with the committee.
I'm sorry, I did not plan to have him here today.
Okay. Well, yeah, we're just hearing a lot of things, and obviously, I mean, even you're saying we're late in the game, and maybe you give us more detail about what exactly that means.
And I was at another meeting when that was with Guam Power, so I didn't get to sit on that one. Normally I do.
Okay. Well, so if we're late in the game with FEMA, then I'd like the opportunity to ask the guy who's in charge of dealing with FEMA for the Guam Department of Education some questions. Because I don't think we need to be in a position where through, design or delay, losing crucial reimbursements that, we're not exactly spilling out with money here. We need every dollar we can get.
No, I understand that.
Okay, thank you. Senator Tydegui?
Actually, that was a question. You got me. I thought it was next, but
Welcome
no.
to the committee,
Thank
Senator
you.
Tydegui.
Thank you. No, you're definitely well-versed, Mr. Chair, and I definitely look to you on some of the answers too that I have. Thank you. But how many superintendents do you have, deputy superintendents do you have?
Right now I have 2. I'm authorized 4.
You're authorized 4. Okay. I hope they're doing their job, that's to help you out. I mean, if you don't have a lot of this information to answer our questions, especially when it comes to FEMA or anything else, I just hope that they cover the shortfall that you haven't been able to.
Finding appropriately qualified, knowledgeable people is not always easy.
I hear you.
There's a challenge there.
Yeah, and you shouldn't settle for less, until you find something. So I guess you got to work, triple time. Or, about triple time to get
something like that, yes.
Yeah, I understand. You said it would be about $20 million for Simon Sanchez at the temporary school. How much is it going to cost the government of Guam for the current school? I mean, I know it's under lease to own, right? But we're going to have a contract that's going to end up costing how much?
For the Simon Sanchez construction?
Right.
The authorized level that I've seen is $160 million. It hasn't been put out for bid, so I don't know anything beyond that.
So it's going to cost us $160 million to build Simon Sanchez. And now we're going to tag on another $20 million for a temporary facility.
And
$20 million.
And we've put up another 10 for construction management. So,
Oh, another 10, so it's now 170. And now, so that's going to be 20. Okay, so that's quite a lot of money. Quite a lot. I understand the 160 is in, phases, spread out like a mortgage, it helps. But the 20 million and plus the 10 million, it's quite substantial. It's just unfortunate, yeah. We just need more information. It sounds to me like you're having conversations with just 2 senators about what's going on with this bill, this temporary Simon Sanchez, and we really need to be put in the loop as well. It takes 8 to move anything forward in this body. So I think you need to expand your conversations, not to just 2 senators, but, at least 8. But so that's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Teitigui. Superintendent Swanson, could you please proceed with your presentation?
I'm sorry,
We're on Benavente Middle School, Astumbo Middle School double session.
they just finished. The objective is that they do not start the school year that way. We have taken another track because of the lease arrangement for repairs being structured the way it is. We've taken another track to go ahead and procure from a separate contract, a separate vendor, to air-condition 29 classrooms. That procurement is in its final stages. We should be able to get that job done, and we've given them a 60 days to perform, so that we want to have that school ready to, Astumbo Middle School ready to open on its own. There will still be other work that the leaseholder has to do, but we'll have it to a level that it's safe and the climate control is in place that needs to be there. Sean, do you want to talk? Sean is handling the procurement on and taking the lead on that project.
I knew that. I was just kidding. Sean 140 Food Service Management Division Administrator. Okay, so with the 29 air conditions, we went ahead and did the SOW, or the scope of work for it. We put it together. We have packaged it. It's at procurement. It should be announced for 15 days, starting on Monday. Should be. Within that 15 days, we close, we go out. Our market research is saying that it should take 1 month to install the 29. So if we stay on track, we should be opened at AMS, no problem. And then we are working other procurements to address the ceiling tiles stuff. But for the air conditions, the 29 5-ton units that we're getting there, they do come with the mold mitigation, and they come with blue light to help with all of that too. So that'll be one less school. Okay, thank you.
And that's because this is a lease to own arrangement. We can use our federal funding for that, so that we have the money available. And it's under $500,000, so we don't have to go through legal review at another level.
Is there any effort moving forward to amend these lease agreements with these schools? Because it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, they sustained a lot of damage in the typhoon, and then we had to send all the kids over to Benavente Middle School. And I was told they were pending repairs at Astumbo, and they were supposed to go back after Christmas break. That didn't happen. And now GDOE is footing the bill for these air cons at this lease school. So is there any effort to kind of amend these contracts so that, we don't get stuck holding the bag for somebody else's property?
Yes, sir. So right now it's $1.9 million a year shared between the 4 schools. We have been working with, they have been having the management meetings with the superintendent, and they are going to actually approach everybody to see if they can up it because if you look at how much that 1.9 million for a whole year for 4 schools, just for that, it's not cutting it. So if they do the 10% mod for that, which is the legal mod at 10%, it will help a little bit more. And they could do it every 2 years, I think, and they haven't been. So they're going to address that soon, but a little bit out of a time.
Senator Brown?
So with these leased facilities, who holds the insurance on the property?
It's, the schools do, it's a self-assured, so.
Why would we be getting self-insured that we would pay for a facility that we're leasing from them?
So the way the contract is set up, it says it's 1.9 million, and as soon as that 1.9 million is done, they have no more money to address into the school. So then if we are going to wait for the next year to come, none of this work is going to be done. So under the superintendent's guidance, we had to search for funds to address the 4 schools. Well, there's 6, but just for Astumbo, I can talk about that we had to find funds to address just that school to ensure that it passes the inspection and gets the insurance and it doesn't double session. So as of right now, it's past the $1.9 million. So we could wait until October until it starts again and then they can start funneling in money, or we just get them fixed now.
And same thing as Teads High School. I mean, we're supposed to pick up the bag for, water leaks on a structure that we don't control or own.
Yes, and this was before the superintendent's time. And
why?
It's the way they wrote the contract.
Yeah,
then.
who and what wrote the contract? I mean, it's no different than my house. It's no different than your house and getting insurance. I mean, you insure up to a certain amount to, you pay for that, and they'll hold the risk management that goes into it so that, if and when something happens, that's covered by your insurance. Now, we're renting or leasing a facility, and now if it gets damaged, the structure's damaged for whatever reason, it's cracked, it's leaking, we're paying for it. Yes. What's the benefit? I might as well own it. Right. And watch it deteriorate. I don't get it. And I mean, I'm sorry, but DOE's still DOE. Who the heck sat and negotiated these contracts that put us at a disadvantage as the customer? Yes. Would you do that with a lease building that you were renting?
No.
If I was renting an apartment or a condo and it got damaged?
Nope, not even my
Then
house.
why would we do that for a multi-million-dollar lease agreement that we have that puts us at a disadvantage and then tells us that we don't own the building, but we got to put and invest money into the building that benefits the contractor or the owner of the facility? Duh. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. I don't know who the legal eagle that was working on this, or I understand it's change in leadership, but it's an expectation that these basic things are looked into to protect the interests of the school and the facility. That's why we wanted the advantage of the lease agreement. We wanted it to help address those very concerns so they were not on the backs of the Department of Education. So the Department of Education can get on with the business of educating children. So I know it's before your time, but obviously another issue you have to look at, I mean, I would be negotiating these agreements to protect my interests. That should always be the priority. I don't get it. These things sound like they're at the interest of the contractor because the contractor can just, not my problem, you pay for it.
Yeah, once we hit that 1.9, it does feel that way.
And then who decided 1.9 million?
11 years ago, I believe. I believe the contract's almost 11 years old now.
Probably. I was at DPW when we had to go and do the inspection on the transition of that. Again, I'm just dumbfounded. I don't know why it's so difficult to figure out from a standpoint that our priority is to make sure we maximize the benefit to ourselves and not the other party. And to find out that we're ending up having to pick up the bill for damage that should have been insured, I don't get it. It's not like money's floating around for everybody. I'm sure there's a lot of things at DOE you don't have the money for that you need. It just doesn't make a lot of sense on how these agreements were negotiated. So anyway, another issue again. Okay, thanks, Mr.
Thank you, Senator Brown. Please proceed, Superintendent. Thank you, Mr. Monforti.
Okay, so we are finished with temporary campus.
We're on something nice, good vibes, summer student opportunities.
So Benavente Middle School, Astumbo Middle School, we've talked about that. So summer opportunities. The trades, we have normal summer school going on. It'll be consolidated in some cases because of work that's projected to be being done on some of the schools. That's still being worked out and communicated. And then there's the trade summer program that starts on June 3rd, in addition to a number of other internship opportunities that kids are having. But we're going to run summer school from June 10th to July 12th. And that will be all grade levels available. So we're running that. That's the next slide. You can take a look at the schedule for that. Sean, are we going to be feeding on the summer program? That's summer EBT is going to happen for families, but also.
So, sir, we are feeding the elementary schools and the high schools. We're feeding breakfast for them because they're only 4 hours a day. But for the Trades Academy, it's an 8-hour program. So we do the breakfast and lunch for that. So we are doing multiple site feedings at this moment. And then for the ESY, we're going to go ahead and I think that's breakfast and lunch also.
How many students are you going to be able to accommodate with? I think it's a great program. How many students can you accommodate for the program to sign up?
So I am just doing the lunches on it, but I work hand in hand with them. Right now, I believe there's 160. Yeah, trades, it's 160 for both ESY and Project Q.
And I assume because of the timeline it's starting, you already have students signing up?
Yes.
Have you maxed out yet, or there's still open space? Or
Mr. Sanchez.
Hi, good morning. Joe Sanchez, Deputy Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction. So these are the programs that we sponsor through our office. So they're actually a little separate. So thank you to Food and Nutrition who's been helping us make sure that we feed our students. The Trades Academy can accommodate up to 100 students. So we have students who are already registering. This is about our 4th or 5th year now. So we get an average of about 40 students who participates in the DOE Trades program. They also have Project U, which is a separate program that also has Department of Education students that's sponsored by the Guam Police Department, so we work collaboratively with them. They also have another, about 40 to 50 students who participate in the same area, so we have them going on simultaneously. So that's where Sean gets a number of about over 100 students. Last year, there was an additional program, and we're really happy because there's all these different types of interest from the students with the Department of Labor. Again, that's separate. They have not requested for food, but our understanding that was about 30 students as well. So the Trades Academy, just from experience, can accommodate about 150 students throughout the summer.
So do you still have vacancies? Can
Oh,
students
yeah.
still sign up?
We're never at capacity, so we try to recruit with
outreach,
students.
you notify them in the schools that this is available?
Mm-hmm. One of the challenges that we have, I don't want to call it a challenge, but we try to service the same groups of students, the at-risk, the students who need credits, the students who need additional interventions. But sometimes they would elect to have the summer internship program. So we also partner with the Department of Youth Affairs. We have about 300 students that come to the DOE, and then I think the other 300 or 400 go to the other departments throughout the island. So sometimes our students elect to participate in the paid program, the internship, versus going to the trades program, which is for credit. They can earn credit, but some of them would rather get paid. So we do try to accommodate them depending on what agency they're at. The problem is if they don't make their hours at the agency, they'll lose out in their pay. So it's really one of those situations where we're trying to coordinate to have less conflict.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate the information.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Brown. Superintendent?
Okay, summer opportunities, we've covered that, so we need to go back. Next slide, there we are. Sanitation compliance for 25-26. Ocean View Middle School, as we know, has just passed their inspection, and we are finishing up Agatha Johnson. We'd hoped it would be finished today, but it looks like it'll be early next week. So far, they are passing, and that's the school that had many challenges. Starting after that, League One Elementary will come up, then Maria Ujola, and then Jose Rios. So we are scheduled into the month of June with those inspections. As I've said before, we have maintenance teams on site working those in advance of the inspection so that we're sure to make the cut. The spreadsheet that I provided to you already, and then it's in the next slide. That one, you have a hard copy there. You can see the schedule. It is flexible. Sometimes the inspections go faster. Sometimes they want to take a little bit longer, but that's kind of, that pace is set by the inspectors, not by us. They have been very, very helpful in helping and pointing out areas that we need to repair while they're on site so that we're sure to pass. So that's one of the ways we've been able to avoid having to close the school and go online or double them up somewhere else. We had that one experience with Tamuning. We do not want to repeat that. So far, we're having good success with that part of it. The next slide is because there was a question has come up. We know what grade they got, but what was the score? What were the points? And we know that that's a 40-point. If you get 40 demerits or more, you fail. And so if we could go to the next slide, you see that these are the schools that all have been officially reported and inspected so far. And so you can see the score that they got and the grade. My objective is, as we start to re-inspect, is to move everybody up a notch grade-wise. So let's get it up to a B. Show continuous growth. If we can get an A, that's even better. But at least in not only pass, but in pass at a higher rate with fewer challenges. The next slide, yes, okay. All 41 schools complete their self-inspections. They're due in January, and they're doing it again as we go into summer. A total of 17 have completed all of the health inspections and passed. Our goal is to have them all passed. Ocean View Middle was the last inspection, completed on May 9th, and they got 36 demerits. That's a campus that's got some specific challenges. As you're aware, probably part of it is actually condemned. It's probably the facility that's in the most need of either replacement or demolition, one of the two. 20 schools are in pending inspections right now. We're going to stay on pace as much as we can. And the next topic is special education, and Tom can speak to that and give you detailed answers. Oh, excuse me, I had the slides stuck together here. Just wanted to make sure that everybody understands that this one slide that's up, and it's also in your handout, has a tab in it to pull down and find all of the inspection information and the scores, as you had asked earlier for that to be on our website, and it's there. So we want
Thank you, Superintendent.
In full disclosure on that. Now to special education.
Good morning, Tom Babauta, Assistant Superintendent of Special Education. So you had asked for an update on the one-to-one positions. We have 105 full-time positions. 20 of those are locally funded. We have 181 full-time positions that are temporary, and we were able to extend them. Initially, it was going to be at the end of this school year, which was yesterday. We've extended them through out the summer and all of next school year. So these are limited term full-time positions. We'll be utilizing the summer to provide training. Any of the students that are going to the Department of Labor program or any other ESY or summer school programs will be able to have their paraeducators attend with them so they can maximize their program. We have 16 ARP-funded folks that were absorbed under the special education side, so we've pulled them over since they were providing that service for us. Now they're under our umbrella. And as I mentioned earlier, out of the 181, we were able to extend them through the next school year. So that was good news for us.
Mr. Rabalta, the reason why I asked for this update was we had Principal Santos of Benavente Middle School had come to the last hearing, and he'd shared with me a bunch of concerns about and I believe he was part of a committee, and I'm not sure who formed, or do you form? Okay, can you just give us more info on that?
Sure. So what we're trying to do right now is have collaborative leadership. So in everything that we're trying to do, we're including the folks that are impacted the most. So we've asked the principals to come together, meet with the central office staff, and come up with a plan. We're reevaluating our paraeducator program. So in the past, we have school teams that determine a student might require a paraeducator. So it's a double-edged sword because, of course, any team that is going to be working with a student is going to want as many resources as possible. The checks and balances piece there is difficult because it seems that we have more paraeducator requests than anywhere else in the country per capita. So what we're looking at right now is reevaluating and doing an audit on all of the paraeducators and the students that they serve. So what we're finding is many of our students definitely are in need of that full support, and the rest of them are in need of some type of support or assistance. So we're trying to find a way to maximize the amount of paraeducators we have and move away from the determination of a one-to-one, hip-to-hip kind of a policy. So what we're trying to figure out is if we could have maybe one or two paraeducators assigned to a class, for instance, that could benefit the entire population, not single out a particular student, definitely go ahead and give extra additional support to the students that need it, but also could benefit the rest of the classroom as well, because we get into compliance issues when you put on a individual education program that a student is going to have a paraeducator hip to hip. If that paraeducator goes off to lunch and says, hey teacher, I'm going to go to lunch and could you cover down, we're already out of compliance. We need to backfill and ensure if it's hip to hip, someone needs to be right there tethered. So what we're looking at is in terms of independence and really promoting students that are going to go out into the community, because the reality of the world is you don't have a one-to-one in the community. When you go to work, we might have a time where you have somebody with you and you can learn from them, and then you need to be off, right? So we're trying to start that kind of concept all the way back into our school years. We do have some more heavily involved cases where they might be medically fragile or require a feeding tube or be very rambunctious that they require somebody right there because of safety issues. But for the most part, what we're looking at is trying to maximize not only the behavioral aspect, but the academic aspect. And we're trying to normalize that and have the independence built in. So Mr. Santos is part of the committee. What we've noticed is that we cannot keep up with the supply and demand. We continue to get, I think I mentioned at the last oversight that since January we've had a request of over 20 full-time positions or limited term full-time positions that are new. And at the rate we're going with 20 to 30 new requests every school year, you could see that it's not feasible or practical financially, and then also just getting the manpower in the community. We haven't really seen many people coming through. So one thing we've done is we've partnered with the Department of Labor and Guam Community College. We'll be rolling out a boot camp for paraeducators. So it's going to do two things. We're going to be trying to train folks in the community, and then that way we can increase our workforce. We also, should it not be utilized to capacity, let's say we have a group that can accommodate 20 and only 15 come, they've opened it up to us that we can retrain some of our folks or to go back and get that training, and we're going to be partnering with them. So we're going to be hopefully developing some folks that are highly trained, that are ready and willing to come to work, and then we can have that partnership. But we are kind of at a point where we're anywhere between 80 and 100 paraeducators short at any given time. How that is covered at the school level, each school looks at what resources they have in order to ensure compliance, and they say, okay, this is the pool of resources we have today. We're going to go ahead and cover these students that require that. So even though we have a shortage, the school administrators and the school community still ensures that whatever is on the individual's IEP is implemented and covered. What that does, though, is it creates a vacuum where now those aides that were supposed to be maybe covering a classroom or covering lunch duty may not be able to do that. So, there's always a, second, third order of effect, issue down the line. So we're trying to figure out a way to provide that support and coverage all the way around.
I think where I was kind of struggling with it was it seemed like Mr. Santos and the information he was giving me, there was a departure between what he's saying and what you're saying, and he's saying, we need more aides, and then I guess what you're saying is we need more aides, but we're also trying to move away from this idea that every SPED student deserves a one-to-one aide.
Based on what is on each individual's IEP right now, we are short between 80 and 100 aides or paraeducators. But Mr. Santos is part of the group, and at the last group discussion that was last week, we were looking at the audit where we were pulling all the files, reviewing, and determining how many of these students require full-time and how many of them require just either passing time or different times of the day or different subjects. And what we're finding is it's not every student that requires that full hand-over-hand 100% assistance. So we're trying to look at maximizing resources, and but definitely we do have a shortage, and we're in an ideal world we would be able to have those 80 to 100 paraeducators on board with us, but it doesn't always happen. So we have a high attrition. It's an entry-level position. It's a difficult position. The pay is at the low end of the scale, so people tend to either get burned out or maybe get other opportunities and leave. So that's one of the reasons why you and I have talked before about looking at some opportunities to maybe upscale the position and maybe find ways where we might be able to reduce the attrition and maybe increase the pay, right?
Okay. I did have another question. So I'd been in receipt of email, and maybe you can kind of explain this, but SPED classroom teachers being converted to school program consultants. Can you explain that process?
So we're not converting SPED classroom teachers to school program consultants. So for years, we've had 9-month status employees at the central office. Where that came from is, based on our SPED grant, you need qualified individuals with a background in the classroom. So as an example, to become a principal, you need so many years of experience in the classroom because you're going to be supervising teachers. And so when we pull people down to Central or open up these positions, historically, and this predates me coming on board in '99, they had brought teachers over, continued them as a 9-month position, but they're at central office. So we've received a lot of criticism in the last few years about having 9-month positions at Tizen. I think the confusion is they're thinking that these are paper pushers at the office and not at the school. Our 9-month positions that are assigned to Tizen are actually school-based positions. They are home-based out of Tizen, but if you come to our office in the daytime, you'll find all of our folks that are 9-month positions are out at the schools providing either speech therapy, leisure ed, coaching. So they're all school-based, and because we have them visit itinerant populations. So we're not converting, but we are moving away, at least on the special education side, moving away from having 9-month positions. We're looking to open 12-month positions and do away with the 9-month positions. So it's not that we're converting, we're opening, and we'll no longer be utilizing 9-month positions out of Central. Now, I have met with the staff and talked to them through the course of a couple years. You know, it's not something we have to have a crosswalk to ensure that, you know, we make that transition safely. And the other thing that we do is many of these folks who work in the 9-month positions work over the summer because we need those folks during the summer. So they end up working part-time during the summer, and with a 12-month position, we'll be able to have that without having to open up the position and have to backfill that. So it's technically incorrect that we're converting, but it is correct in the sense that we're moving away from having 9-month positions at Central, at special ed.
Thank you for that clarification, Mr. Babauta. I did, and you might have seen this email from Cecilia Champion, but I just want to read this one little paragraph. She talks about SPED teachers now have coaches, which that's what you just talked about, right? Are these the same as coaches and the school program consultants?
I didn't see the email, so maybe.
Okay, also let me just read, I'll forward it to you. But she's got a bunch of different concerns in there, but she says the SPED teachers now have coaches from central office who visit periodically. Their presence would be more welcome as additional teachers for the schools. And I guess that was my question. So you had said that we have 40 teacher vacancies. Are any of these teacher vacancies, or maybe you can answer, for special education teachers?
Some of them are, yes.
So
those are total certified vacancies as of the end of last week.
I guess the obvious question then is, do we need to have these people who are being given this new title, should they just be in the classroom to fill those vacancies?
So that's, excuse me, that's one of the reasons why I'm moving away from having the 9-month position. So teacher positions will be out in the classrooms, and anyone who is picked up at Central will be under a different title. So you have to remember, based on our grantor and the assurances that we give, there are certain things that have to be provided in students' IEPs. So there is a component that has to come out of central office. So what we're trying to do now is meet the need, win-win, right? So no longer having these teacher folks at Central, but we still have a function, so we have to come up with a different job title. If those teachers should decide to apply, then they can come over. But of course, the priority always is classroom. So that's one of the reasons, again, I mentioned we're moving away from having teacher folks at Central, and we're promoting having these folks in the classroom.
I noticed in a lot of your answers, you're talking about maximizing resources. Is there an issue with federal funds and the amount of federal funds that you're getting, or resources generally with special education?
Right, so we have a finite amount of, every year we have a grant, and that grant is finite. So we have to work within the grant that we get, and we have a bunch of different assurances that we have to give on what we're proposing and what we're providing. So right now, typically most other places don't utilize, we're up to about 48% of our federal funding goes to one-to-one or paraeducator positions. That's not the norm in other districts. So, it is a drain on our resources when we're focusing half of our efforts on just providing the one-to-one. So we're really looking at other ways on how we're going to be providing the assistance and the support to schools while always maintaining the support for students, if that is exactly what they need.
Right, and I hear what you're talking about the trends stateside versus the trends here, but in your opinion, and I know you have a lot of experience, is that really an apples-to-apples comparison?
Well, we also look at other districts and populations that are small like us, and we still, again, are double everywhere else. So it's a cultural issue, not something that I'm gonna fight. I mean, if that's something that our school population is feeling like absolutely that's what we need and we require, then then we're going to have to, provide that. But that comes with some give and take. And we need to look at, I know that you guys always bring up the issue of we have so much resources. If you maximize and you prioritize one thing, then something else is going to suffer. So we're really trying to figure out a way to balance out everything so that we can meet all of our requirements and all of our needs and putting that student in the center. So it's a tough juggle for us, but we're trying our best.
Thank you, Mr. Rabata. Mr. Superintendent, that pretty much concludes your presentation, right?
Yes, it does,
Okay.
except for the thank you slide.
Oh, nice. I did have a bunch of questions, but I'll go ahead and then defer to my colleagues if they have any. Senator Teitigui? No? You sure? Senator Brown?
I'm still in the afterglow of Senator Tello not having another question. This discussion with regards to these 9-month employees, I see you've looked at solutions since we last met, but are we looking at something that would provide them a little more security in their position? Because it sounds like it's at the bottom of the rung, but yet something that has become needed, very needed. So we don't end up looking at the situation where they end up leaving because they have no sense of job security or they're only compensated 9 months out of the year. What is being done beyond this extension till next school year to address these positions? So you don't lose, at least try not to lose as many of them as you keep as many as you can from one school year to the next.
To the degree that we can, and again, it comes to balancing the budget. Traditionally, there are certain positions in the school system that are seasonal. And when you get to special education aides, the aide follows the student. So if the student is not in an extended school year, then they don't need to go to school during the summer, then the aide is not funded.
You could say the same thing for a classroom teacher because they're there 8 months out of the school year and then they're off for summer break, wouldn't you? Students are attached to the teacher. I'm just bringing up there needs to be a way to look at this. I don't know if there are other activities or training or whatever that can be put in place where they can be functional and still contributing and still compensated, because I mean, as seasonal as you say they may be in need, you're going to have a harder time keeping a hold of these individuals if they don't feel any consistency or stability in their employment. You're going to lose them, and it sounds like you need them to have some special training or skills to be able to assist or facilitate with these students.
And that's the quandary we're faced with, because I understand certainly that the folks that come to work for us in the situation they're in, they need to have income and benefits, and it's the benefits side. As I talk to these folks, it's really being able to have not the retirement benefits so much, but the medical. So that's a significant expense when we add it up.
I understand, but I'll tell you, since I was in public school, the Department of Education has continued to expand its own empire at Central. It has grown. We had a principal, we were lucky we had an assistant principal and someone down at Central, but it didn't matter because our school operated. And we hear about this migration, we continue to create these positions exist. And they will tell us that it has a lot to do with some direct assistance into the classroom. But if I'm going to prioritize that between a school aide that a student needs or these particular special positions that provide assistance to children in need, that to me is a priority. What I don't see at DOE is saying, wait a minute, maybe we don't really need this, this, and this, so we can pay for this where there's direct student support. That's how I look at it.
Could I jump in really quickly, and I want to address the paraeducators. So for over 15 years prior to last year, all of our paraeducators were limited term part-time. So when the students were not there, they were not there.
Yes, I understand that.
But, well, I'm getting to my point. So last year was the first year we went to limited term full-time, where we recognized the need to and we value our population, and this is going to be an additional year. So now we're going on 3 years where we're continuing on with a limited term, but they're at least full-time positions. So when we have breaks and we have summer, they continue to be employed. We utilize them in whatever fashion, and then we also provide extra training. So it is something that we are looking at ways where if we could maximize, and we've had talks, and that's one of the reasons why we have the committee coming together, is because what we would need to do is, it would take roughly 30 to 35% additional to permanize all of these employees. In addition, as you all know, then every year when the increments come in, then there's an additional roughly 3.5% that would have to be tacked on.
You know,
So,
I think we understand all that and the math and the multiplication and the cost, but like I said, where is the direct support to the student? That to me would be the priority. If I have to look at the DOE budget, if I were in your shoes, the board, whoever, whatever, looking at the budget, what would I prioritize? What directly benefits the student? Everything that further away from that, further away from the classroom of actually providing that direct support,
so I wanted
I'd
to,
cut there.
I mean, I'm not trying to speak for the superintendent,
I'm not
but
asking you to speak for the
no,
superintendent. I'm sorry, I'm not here to
Okay.
debate with you. I do that on the other side of the floor, and I'm, you know, sometimes other colleagues don't get a word in edgewise. I'm not here to debate with you. I'm simply saying from at least my perspective, I would prioritize that. Because these positions, if you're going to leave them where you're at, you're going to end up with the same situation. You're going to have a harder time recruiting, and you're going to have a harder time keeping even the ones that I'm sure are very dedicated. But it's practical. People have bills to pay. People have health care issues. People want to know, do I have a job security? If I don't, you know, I got to go look at something else somewhere else where I can get paid with some consistency so that I can make a living, take care of my family, and do my job. And I'm sorry, but if it's not a direct support, and as a student, who am I dealing with? My teacher, my school principal, my school aide, you know, we used to call them parapros. That was the extent of my world as a student. Everything beyond that was non-existent to me as a student. And yes, there's support staff that make sure the supplies and resources get to the school. And we knew who our cafeteria people were every year that served us our lunch and our breakfast. And everything else beyond that as a student to me was irrelevant. So I'm just saying, even though I see a lot of stuff's been instituted and titles have been instituted, positions, a lot of six-figure positions have been created at DOE over the years that are there, that to me is not the priority. Because they're not directly providing the education to that student in the classroom. Because I'll tell you, I am as time, and I don't know that I'm going to be here that much longer in years ahead, but I'm of the position that the structure of the Department of Education is too big to be functional. It's too big to move as quickly as it needs to respond to the needs. Because I see it happening in private schools, I'm even seeing it happen in charter schools. I don't see it happening as quickly at DOE, but yet the biggest price tag per student is the Department of Education. So when I hear this issue, and yes, I know I've run big budgets, I've run agencies, I understand all that. It's just a question of where are your priorities. You're not married to the system. That's the advantage you have. Now the question over time is to see how long you survive, because you're either going to shift them in their direction or they're going to get rid of you. One or the other things are going to happen. But I would say, I would start looking at what's needed, because all this other structure above, all this other important stuff that we do with our degrees and everything, to me is irrelevant if it doesn't have direct benefit and a structural benefit to the child in the classroom. So that's what I got to say. When you think you don't have enough money to do this, I'd cut other areas of DOE to pay for that, because that to me is a direct benefit to that child or to the children now that you're expanding. If you're not doing one-on-one per child, if they're out there to support several children at a time, whatever the case, whatever the equation is that you think is best, that to me is more a priority than any other assistant to the assistant title that you may have in DOE. Because if it were my decision, I'd deconstruct DOE. And I'm a product of 9 years of DOE. I would deconstruct, because we didn't have all this stuff. And I'll tell you, writing, arithmetic, my ability to comprehend and process, majority of that came from the public school system. And I can cha-cha with the best out there. That to me is where the priority in education. Nowadays, the money keeps multiplying, and the end result is very slow. Very slow to react. That tells me the system's too big to be functional. So that's my 2 cents today. So that's how I look at it with regards, Mr. Chair, to these critical positions that are direct benefit to the student, I think should be prioritized over other positions in the Department of Education. So I I'm not asking any more questions. I simply want to relay that position. Thank you.
Cedars Wasi, Senator Brown. Superintendent, so I did have first of all, I wanted to congratulate the Guam Department of Education on several schools: Simon Sanchez High School, FP Leon Guerrero, Maria Ujoa Elementary School, Truman Elementary School, Teason High School, Orda Chalampago Elementary School for attaining their WASC accreditation. Sorry, I should have led with that, but yeah, congratulations on that.
It's good to end on a positive note.
Yeah, well, we're not done yet, though. I was looking at your aging report for vendor payments, and I saw on there with the federal funds there was, I believe, over 90 days, $603,000. What's that from?
I'm not looking at that report, so I don't have it memorized.
Okay. Well, do you have any idea of why we're so behind?
And who's the vendor?
Yeah, and all that. Well, maybe you could get that information for me then.
Yeah, we can certainly go.
Yeah, I don't know who the vendor is. It doesn't say. It just says that.
Generally, federal that is over 90 days. It's late liquidation and the problem of getting the actual receipts back from the vendor, from the end user, to get it back into the system and pay it.
I know last year we saw an interruption in service due to the expiration of the contract for the MiFi devices, and then I'm receiving information that we're over 90 days behind on payment for that. Is that accurate? Can anyone provide information on that?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. Can you follow up on that?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. And then another a piece of information I got from a constituent in the public school system. They were talking about administration certification. Can you explain the process wherein administrators receive a certification for being administrators?
They have to apply to the same Guam agency for teacher certification, and there are specific requirements, coursework that they have to have taken at the graduate level. They have to meet that requirement.
Are you able to provide the committee with any information on the status of administration certification for all of your administrators?
I should be able to.
Okay, I'm just receiving information.
I mean, the information that I have that all my administrators are fully certified.
Okay.
I have had some teachers this year, and this isn't normal, that we've had to provide written warning that their certification is about to lapse or it has lapsed, and they have a specific timeline to get it renewed.
Okay, I received similar tips, but with administrators, and so some of the information I received was that there are administrators, and I just hope you can check on this and then provide that committee.
We can do that. That would be Dr. Adamas. She supervises them.
Thank you. So yeah, the information I received was that there may be administrators whose certification is expired, yet they continue to be paid as if they have a valid certification.
We can check that out.
Thank you.
I wasn't aware of any.
Okay.
But we're just in the process right now of reassigning administrators based on vacancies and retirements. So we're in the midst of that. We can certainly check everybody else.
That goes right into my next question. I'd received some concerns from just principals and other admin about principal assignments for school year 24-25. When will those be released, or have they already?
They have not been released yet because we're just getting confirmation on retirements, and we'll be working that in the next 2 weeks.
Thank you. I've also been in receipt, actually, several emails from the guidance counselors, and I just want to, I'm kind of jumping into this issue midstream, but I understand that, well, let me just read from you, or to you, a little bit from this email that I received from a guidance counselor. I believe it's finally time that the superintendent and his new deputy address the grievance that was filed by 25 school counselors. I understand that the window to proceed to the Civil Service Commission is long past, but I feel the department has an obligation to act in good faith and uphold the recommendations that were approved by then Superintendent John Fernandez. Otherwise, why have a grievance process if the decisions will not be honored? They further write here that the most recent follow-up was on May 8, 2024. And with regards to the grievance, the last time that spoke about the grievance was when the former deputy, Ken Perez, to inform about it, but he has since resigned. Now these guidance counselors are asking the current status of the recommendations on the grievance, and they're requesting a meeting, if it hasn't already been scheduled, with Dr. Adamos.
Dr. Adamas is reviewing those documents. I met with the lead of the Counselors Association last week. We have scheduled another meeting for, it should be next week, to take that matter up. Again, this is one of the things that Senator Brown's concerned about. Is it putting the emphasis directly at the school, or do we want to create an administrative position at the headquarters level? We have to figure out the best way to manage and understand all the student services that are delivered, because not only is there counseling, there are psychologists, there are nurses, and I'm discovering that unlike school systems in the U.S. that I'm working with, we are manning and providing a large part of the public health mission, not the education mission. And now we have to have the conversation around, is that how we want to deliver those services in the community, or do we need to narrow? Because I see us doing an awful lot of work at a great deal of expense, and it's important work that has to be done, but it's being done through the school district. I've never seen a nurse in every school anywhere in America. You're lucky if you have one in the district that supervises some health aides that goes around to schools and checks paperwork on medication, and that's the end of the support. Everything else is done through the public health department or through other social services in the community. But this is how it's evolved here. I'm grateful that we have that capacity, because it really delivers a high level of care at the school level. And the same thing with the number of psychologists that we have. We're offering therapy. That school systems don't do therapy, but we are.
Well, I guess
so. It's a really complex set of issues, and we need to spend some time with it and decide what the appropriate priorities in this community are, and what we're willing to pay for, and how we're willing to pay for it. But we do a lot of work that's way outside the K-12 learning responsibilities.
Thank you for that, Mr. Superintendent. Could you comment on the media reports? I think this morning may have even been one yesterday about the Guam Department of Education being behind the curve with a school psychologist shortage.
Yeah, in terms of the ratios that the psychologists see that their professional organization says that we should have more. And I think Mr. Babalto would be in agreement. Because we have a population, because they do a key part of the evaluation of students with special needs. But again, we're also providing therapy. That's not something that's normally in the school district's mission, but it has evolved here. And so, yeah, to do all of those things, we're short. And then we have to find a way to financially attract them, because in private practice and in other settings, the first news I got about the graduating class that just came out of UOG is that 6 of them just signed up with DODEA. So they've got a leg up right out of the degree program, because they can make a better living, and they have other options that are appealing. So we have to compete. And we have to compete more effectively.
Yeah, I think admittedly this is an issue that I'm going to have to do my research on, because part of me agrees with you about going above and beyond what maybe our real mission and mandate is, but then also with the pandemic and the onset of mental health issues, right?
Well,
the focus
those issues are there, no question about it.
Right,
and they need attention. And different communities have come about it different ways, and usually through partnerships with mental health agencies and entities in the community. And I've seen that in a number of different environments because of the work I was doing with accreditation. I got to see that across several states. But yeah, the added demand for mental health support and services in the school systems is without question.
Was there a request for school psychologists not included in the budget?
What, in the budget? Believe so, yes. And,
So-
and I know that he's got it in his grant request,
Okay.
because those are grant funded.
Thank you for that. Mr. Superintendent, do you have a miles program in the Guam Department of Education? Are you aware of this? Maybe I can explain. So in other agencies in the government of Guam, when people travel on the taxpayer's dollar, the miles, like the frequent flyer miles that are accumulated from that travel, they go in, well, they're supposed to go into a mileage bank, but that might be a good story for any of our media friends out there to follow up on. But they're supposed to go into a mileage bank, and then anybody, whether it's medical travel or any type of people who are facing challenges with off-island travel are supposed to be able to avail of this mileage bank. And so I had got a tip, and maybe you could clarify that this doesn't exist for the Guam Department of Education.
The last research that we did with that, and was Ms. Camacho that was doing it, United Airlines wants that to be keyed on a specific credit card that would belong to an individual, and that's the last thing that I want to do is say, put that on my credit card? No. We don't have a corporate credit card. We don't own one. We don't have it established at all. So we're trying to figure out a mechanism where we can do that. We're trying to investigate whether or not the foundation could hold it and make that available. Right now, we have had limited access to that through Department of Administration because they've been able to bank that, and we've used it a couple times, but we're still trying to establish it.
So is it correct that travelers who are employed with the Guam Department of Education who travel on taxpayers' dollar, are they keeping the miles associated with these trips?
I believe they are.
Are they using these miles that, again, they're accumulating through the taxpayers' dime to upgrade the status of their flights to first class or business class?
I don't know that. I've yet to travel. I don't know.
Could you find out?
No, there's a privacy question there, but I can certainly look into it.
Well, I don't think there's a privacy question. If we have employees of the Guam Department of Education traveling on publicly funded trips, then I would just assume that everything that accumulates associated with the cost of that ticket, I mean, rightfully belongs to the people of Guam, and I would just have an issue with people who are traveling on, taxpayer dollars or federal funds, living in the lap of luxury in first class because they got miles from, again, traveling on trips that are paid for by the people of Guam.
We could look into it.
Thank you. Okay. Senator Brown, did you have anything further? Okay. Thank you. I did want to ask for the geckos. Again, I know I'd asked Nick if you could just provide an update on the air conditioning for the George Washington Gym.
So to start it off, the gym is a three-phase approach. First one was a structural repair completed. Next is interior painting. We're going to use the summertime to paint the interior of the gym only, not exterior. And we do have the 10-ton package units on island right now. We have 4. One is being dedicated to Jose Rios Middle School. The second is to Mini Elementary School. And I just talked to the contract manager for the AC, and they're going to try and push GW to be the next one. But GW has 6 10-ton package units. Right now, I'm only able to allocate 2 to them. Not sure if that's able to suffice, but we're still waiting for more package units to arrive on island.
So you're going to allocate 2 10-ton units to the George Washington High School gym?
Correct.
Okay. Last time we spoke, you had said that those were on the boat, right? They're on the ship on the way over?
They still are.
Still on the boat?
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm sorry, I didn't hear a timeline on that. So when we had spoke previously, you had said that it was your intention to work really hard to try and get the AC on the gym on by the start of the school year, but that wasn't really realistic. So is there a new timeline now?
I'm sorry, for all 6
Just
packages?
specifically for the Gecko's gym.
Well, 1 second.
Okay,
I
sure.
have a, I'm sorry.
No worries. And while I'm at it, I did want to take this opportunity to thank my friends at the Pacific Wellness Foundation, as they're currently arranging a donation of gym equipment to the George Washington Geckos. And so really great to see the people of Guam giving back to the public school system, and just hoping that we can put that nice aircon cherry on top of the George Washington gym.
Okay, the document I have doesn't have an estimated timeline for the other 12 10-ton package units. 4 are on island. 12 is, I believe, at the port. I don't have an estimated timeline for those 12. What is it? It's May, June, July, August, 3 months. I don't want to promise.
No,
promise,
don't
I'm
promise.
sorry.
Do not promise.
Yes,
Absolutely,
but
don't
I have
promise.
2 units. I have at least 2 units to give right now. I don't believe the students are going to be using the gym during the summer.
Right.
I want them to do the interior painting first, and then we could put the package units in. But
So what is the install
the install
time
date?
frame? Yeah.
I'll work with the contract manager,
Okay.
get them installed as soon as possible. But again, I want the interior painting to be completed first. And today marks the first day of summer school, so they should be mobilizing for interior painting next week.
Thank you, Mr. Cruz. Mr. Superintendent, thank you. You know, it is the first day of summer, and my kids slept in this morning, and you know, it was really peaceful out there on the roads without all those pesky school buses. But I mean, the summer for the Guam Department of Education, to me, is going to be a very critical time, because, as you know, we've got the public health compliance that is mandated for the start of this upcoming school year. We've got a bunch of schools that are slated for inspection. I'm a lot worried about the timeline and the ability of public health to get all these schools inspected, you know, prior to the start of the next school year, because I know I don't need to remind you that the law says that those guidelines go into full effect at the start of the upcoming school year. So I guess that's just my way of saying we're going to be seeing more of each other over the summer. So
I don't plan on going on vacation. I do
Right.
have a conference in the middle of July, and that's it.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Superintendent. And then again, if you could provide the committee with the information that I had requested during the hearing. Is so much I actually forgot, but I'll circle back and maybe send you a letter or something. So thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right. If there's nothing further, is there any public comment? We did have an opportunity for, last thing, Soup, the survey. So the survey you had referenced relative to the consolidation closure, when is that going to be released to the public?
I would say mid to late June. We need to do the data analysis and break it out. That we literally just took one rough look at it on Wednesday.
Okay.
To the extent that we found out that we had a really high response rate, which I felt was really excellent, because we'll have good data coming out of that, but we will release it.
Thank you, sir, and again, thank you to your team that came to attend this morning. The committee will continue to accept written statements on today's oversight hearing within 10 business days from today, which may be mailed to my office on the second floor of the Guam Congress Building at 163 Chalan Santa Papa, Nagatnya. You can drop it in person, or you may also send it via email, malafunction@guamlegislature.org. That's MALAFUNKSHUN @guamlegislature.org. Biba Betnes, Sidos Masi, and thank you all for your participation. This public hearing, that's it, is hereby adjourned at 11:30 Chamorro Standard Time. Guahusi Senator Chris Malafunction Barnett, Esta, adios.